It was supposed to be a moment of joy. A stray dog had just gone into labor at a small-town animal shelter, and everyone gathered around expecting the familiar sight of tiny wriggling puppies. The room was filled with hushed excitement, the staff holding their breath as the vet leaned down to lift the very first newborn. But the instant his gloved hands cradled the fragile creature, his face turned pale. His eyes widened in disbelief, and his voice split the silence like a thunderclap. "That's not a puppy." The words sent a chill through the room. Gasps rippled among the volunteers. Towels slipped from trembling hands. Daisy, the mother dog, licked her newborn tenderly, unaware of the fear sweeping over the humans around her. What they saw that day would not only shock the shelter, but ripple far beyond its walls, leaving an entire world searching for answers. Before we begin, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country's name in the comments. I love seeing just how far our stories can travel. The shelter was filled with a heavy stillness, that morning broken only by the faint sound of paws against the floor. Emma Johnson, 28 years old, adjusted the blanket in her hands as she watched the volunteers carry in the newest arrival. The sight made her heart ache. It was a stray German shepherd, her ribs showing through her matted fur, her body trembling with exhaustion. Yet even in her fear, there was something different. Her amber eyes glimmered with a quiet gentleness, as if pleading for trust. "She's pregnant," one of the volunteers whispered. The weight of those words tightened Emma's chest. This wasn't just about saving one dog. Lives were depending on them now. Emma knelt slowly, her voice soft but steady. "You're safe here, girl." The dog flinched at first, but when Emma extended her hand, she didn't pull away. For the first time, Emma saw hope flicker in those wary eyes. She smiled faintly. "Luna," she whispered, giving her the name that seemed to fit perfectly. A survivor, fragile but full of hidden strength. As Luna settled into the clean kennel prepared for her, Emma felt a shiver of destiny. Something told her this was no ordinary rescue. Days passed, and Luna slowly began to trust the shelter staff. Emma would sit by her kennel each morning, whispering softly and offering small treats. Luna's tail, once tucked tightly under her, began to wag faintly whenever Emma approached. But on the third night, everything changed. Emma was finishing paperwork when a volunteer rushed in, panic in her voice. "It's Luna! She's in labor!" Emma's heart skipped. She hurried to the whelping area, where Luna lay restless, her body tense with contractions. Blankets and towels had already been prepared, but the room buzzed with nervous anticipation. For many volunteers, it was their first time witnessing birth. "Easy, girl, you're not alone," Emma whispered, kneeling beside Luna. She stroked her head as the German shepherd whined softly, her eyes wide with fear, yet filled with trust. Minutes felt like hours. The first newborn slid into the world, small and fragile, its faint squeaks filling the room. Relief washed over everyone. Life had arrived. Emma smiled, tears in her eyes. "Good girl, Luna, you did it." But before the joy could settle, Dr. Collins, the vet on duty, stiffened. His hands trembled as he lifted the newborn, his face paling in shock. This isn't a puppy." The room froze. Emma blinked, convinced she had misheard. But Dr. Collins's voice was sharp and certain. "This isn't a puppy." Gasps rippled through the volunteers. One of them dropped a towel, the sound echoing in the tense silence. Emma leaned forward, her pulse racing. "What do you mean?" she whispered. Dr. Collins lifted the tiny creature higher under the lamp. Instead of the damp fur and rounded features of a newborn puppy, its skin was bare pink and wrinkled. Its limbs seemed elongated, its ears oddly oversized for its fragile head. The newborn squirmed weakly, letting out a sound that didn't match the yips of its siblings. Emma's chest tightened. She glanced at Luna, who whined softly, nudging forward with maternal instinct, desperate to clean and comfort her baby. To Luna, this strange creature was hers. The volunteers exchanged frantic whispers. "Is it a mutation?" one murmured. "Or is it even a dog at all, doctor?" Collins's usually steady hands trembled as he placed the newborn on a clean cloth. He adjusted his glasses, examining every detail with wide eyes. "I've delivered hundreds of litters," he muttered, "but I've never seen anything like this." Emma felt torn. Fear and confusion buzzed around her, but her eyes went to Luna. The German shepherd's gaze was calm, protective, and unwavering. She didn't care what her firstborn looked like, she only cared that it lived. Emma reached out, resting a hand gently on Luna's head. "It's okay, girl," she whispered, though her own voice shook. "We'll figure this out." But deep down, Emma knew this was no ordinary birth. What lay before them was a mystery that could shake more than just their small shelter. By morning, the shelter was no longer quiet. Word of Luna's strange firstborn had already begun to spread. A volunteer had whispered to a friend, and within hours, photos leaked onto social media. By midday, the once-forgotten animal shelter had turned into the center of a storm. Reporters gathered outside the gates, cameras flashing as they demanded answers. Neighbors who had never stepped foot inside the shelter now pressed against the windows, murmuring in awe and fear. Some whispered that it was a genetic experiment, others muttered about curses or omens. Fear swirled with fascination. Inside, Emma Johnson stayed close to Luna. She sat by the whelping box, watching the tiny hairless newborn nestled beside its perfectly normal siblings. To her, the baby was fragile, unique, but still a life worth protecting. Luna, unfazed by the chaos, continued grooming her litter with quiet devotion, her tail thumping every time Emma stroked her fur. Dr. Collins tried to calm the staff. "We need science, not speculation," he said firmly, though his pale face betrayed his unease. He ordered DNA tests immediately determined to put an end to the rumors. The samples were collected carefully while Luna rested her watchful eyes, never leaving the newborn. But outside the clinic, the whispers only grew louder. Some locals believed the shelter was hiding something unnatural. Others, moved by the story, began sending donations and letters of support. Emma felt torn between fear and pride. She knew this tiny creature could either become a symbol of ridicule or a miracle that would change hearts forever. As she looked at Luna's calm devotion, Emma whispered, "No matter what they say, we'll protect you." What began as a quiet birth had now ignited questions that reached far beyond their small Missouri town. Days passed like years inside the small-town shelter. Every morning, Emma Johnson checked on Luna's litter, her heart tightening whenever her eyes lingered on the unusual firstborn. The strange whispers outside grew louder, some claiming it wasn't even a dog at all. Reporters hounded the shelter, but Emma refused to let their noise disturb Luna's quiet devotion. Finally, Dr. Collins returned with the DNA results. The staff gathered in the exam room, tension crackling in the air. Emma stood close to Luna, stroking her ear gently while the mother dog nursed her litter. Dr. Collins unfolded the report slowly, his eyes scanning the lines. Then, with a deep breath, he looked up. "It's a puppy," he said firmly, his voice steady. Gasps echoed around the room. "But it has a rare congenital condition, something that altered its appearance." Emma's knees nearly gave way. Relief surged through her, mingled with awe. "So, he's really one of them," she whispered. "Yes," Dr. Collins nodded. "Fragile but alive, and very much a dog." The room exhaled at once. Fear gave way to wonder. Volunteers who had avoided the newborn now stepped closer, their eyes softening as they watched the little one squirm under the heat lamp. Emma knelt beside Luna and whispered, "You've always known, haven't you?" Luna wagged her tail softly, curling protectively around her brood. News of the results spread quickly. What began as suspicion turned into admiration. The world no longer saw a mystery. They saw survival resilience and the unbreakable bond of a mother's love. Weeks later, life at the shelter had transformed. The tension, the fear, the rumors, everything was replaced by warmth and pride. Luna thrived, her puppies growing stronger by the day, but it was the unusual firstborn who captured everyone's hearts. Emma often sat beside the whelping box, watching the little one toddle clumsily across the blankets. "You're special," she whispered, her hand hovering gently above his fragile frame. And the puppy would wag his tiny tail, his spirit shining brighter than his frailty. Word of the story spread beyond Missouri. Local schools invited Emma and Luna to speak about compassion and acceptance. The once abandoned German Shepherd who had survived so much now stood before children as a living lesson. Love is not defined by appearance. The little puppy, fragile but resilient, became a symbol that differences don't mean weakness, they mean uniqueness. One afternoon, as the shelter hosted an adoption fair, Emma looked around at the smiling faces, the wagging tails, and the families leaving with new companions. Her eyes fell on Luna and her special pup, nestled together in the sunlight. They've changed us all, Emma thought. Not just the shelter, not just the town, perhaps even the world. Life often surprises us in the most unexpected ways. Emma's experience with Luna showed that even in moments of fear, confusion, or doubt, there is always room for compassion, patience, and understanding. The unusual puppy, different from its siblings, reminded everyone that uniqueness is not a weakness, but a strength waiting to be recognized. This story teaches us that when faced with the unknown, our first response should not be fear or judgment, but curiosity and kindness. Too often, society turns away from what seems different, forgetting that every life, no matter how fragile or unusual, carries value and purpose. Emma chose to nurture instead of reject. And in doing so, she gave the little one a chance to grow, to inspire, and to bring hope. In our daily lives, we are all faced with situations where things don't go as expected, whether in relationships, work, or personal challenges. Like Luna and her pup, these moments invite us to see beyond appearances and find strength in vulnerability. True love and acceptance are about embracing what is imperfect, unusual, or uncertain. Because sometimes the most extraordinary miracles come from what we least expect. If you were moved by this incredible story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.